So a couple of years ago, I did the story of Don's 7120 Magnum. And you know what? Let's redo it and let's show you the 7120 Magnum. Well, here is the Magnum. In the fall of 1993, I was 15 years old and I went to the National FFA Convention. On the way down, the bus stopped in Waterloo and we toured the John Deere assembly and engine and tractor works. And when I got back from the National FFA Convention, Don and his son, I was milking cows, and they said, "Hey, how was the FFA convention?" And I said, "You know, it was really cool." I go, "But I had a really good time at the Waterloo Works, you know, at John Deere." And I was a red guy. My dad had internationals, but Don had both, you know, international and John Deere. And I said it was a really, really neat deal. It was a cool tour. Well, I didn't know Don was actually tractor shopping. So he was looking at Magnums, which I didn't know, but also 7800s and 4455s. He wanted a new, bigger front wheel assist tractor. Now Don liked his red tractors, but he also liked John Deere. They were both good to him. But his sons were John Deere. Like, they were not red tractor fans. So there was a 4455 power shift front wheel assist all dualed up at Meyer Implement in Baldwin, Wisconsin. And it was a new leftover. It might have had a few hours on it, but it was a new tractor. Don's son really wanted that tractor. He also would have wanted a 7800, but specifically he wanted that 4455. So now the following February of 1994, the John Deere dealer in Durant, Wisconsin was doing a bus trip down to Waterloo for a tour. And Don paid for his son to go on that tour. And Don's son thought, we're getting a John Deere. It's going to be a 4455 or a 7800, but we're getting a John Deere, you know? While he was gone, this showed up. Bold's Implement in Osseo, Wisconsin delivered the Mag. It was a lease return. It's a 91 or a 92, but it didn't have very many hours on it, and it showed up while his son was going on this tour. So springtime rolls around, and the Magnum goes to do tillage and that kind of work, and it survived it just fine. And Don didn't buy bigger tillage equipment yet, so the Magnum was fine. Now it comes time for chopping, which on a dairy farm back then, you weren't custom hiring your chopping. You did your own silo filling and stacks and all that stuff. And Don had a 3960 John Deere chopper with a 7.5 foot hay head and a 3-row corn head. And that was one of the Magnum's biggest, you know, jobs it needed to have. I apologize for the audio. I forgot my microphones, and when I had the chance to run over here on a rainy day, I took it. So I apologize. But Don had a big, long driveway, and he had a 40, the length of a 40 hayfield going to the south. And that hay was cut and merged up, and Don went to go chop. His son and I are coming up the driveway, and the Magnum stopped. It's hooked to the chopper, and this side panel was off. And we knew what he was doing because Don's other tractors were all turned up. His 986 was turboed, put 20.8s on it. His 4320 was cranking about 180 horsepower. He liked things, you know, with power. So he was turning it up. So a couple minutes later, he starts it up. Nice cloud of black smoke. Takes off, goes just a little bit, a couple hundred feet maybe, stops again. He turned it up some more. This time when he takes off, it's blowing black smoke like a pro stock. It is Ulmer's weapon and Carl Smith's night moves in the Indiana Rascal. Now, it didn't wreck anything because that power wasn't going to hurt anything because there was a slip clutch on the chopper and the PTO would give out before you'd actually hurt much on the tractor, other than the PTO, which these fairly simple to work on the PTO clutch. The next year though, Don updated a little bit for tillage equipment, and he had a 6/18 on-land hitch plow that was made up of a 710, a 700, and a 720 to come up with a 6/18 on-land hitch automatic reset plow. And he'd hooked it to this. Well, late in the spring, they had a hayfield they decided to plow up that had been in hay for years. So it was tall hay and compacted and lots of roots, and it was hard plowing. And Don's son went to plow that on a Saturday night. And I remember him telling me the next morning, and he goes, man, he says, I could go as fast as I wanted. He goes, I could just keep grabbing gears, and I forget what gear he said he was in. But he said, yeah, the old Magnum, it just wasn't giving up. He said, and it started hopping, and he goes, it hopped once, it hopped twice, and the third time it hopped, it just stopped. And every light on the dash came on. So it went to a Case IH dealer across the river in Minnesota, and Don's nephew worked there. And they tore it apart, and it had sheared the drive shaft, the main hydraulic input shaft, whatever, to run everything, it sheared off. So Case IH back then had a 5-year, 5,000-hour warranty. They fixed it. And they're like, this is kind of strange, but they fixed it. They didn't check it. They didn't dyno it. Well, about a year later, that shaft goes out again. And this time, Case IH is like, what the heck? So they're like, they fixed it, and they updated it. They put 7140 internals in there, because apparently there had been some problems, maybe, but it didn't sound like it was, a lot of tractors. But they updated it to 7140 parts in there. So it could take, wouldn't happen again, right? Well, this time the Case IH rep is like, put it on dyno. Don's nephew told me at like 250 horsepower, the tractor wasn't even slowing down. It wasn't even phased. And they said the torque was just going up. And they were like, that's enough. They're like, we're not warrantying that. And Don was really pissed off. He's like, well, it's got a warranty, And the Case IH is like, you doubled the horsepower it was rated for. Now, I think they did stand behind a little bit of it, but Don was on the hook for, quite a bit of it now. But, what the heck? That tractor did a lot of work over the years, and I think it was kind of Don's baby. His sons didn't love it and didn't always treat it nice, but Don liked his Magnum. And I remember he had bumper stickers, gave my dad a bumper sticker. They were all over it and said, if I had 18 speeds like a Magnum, you wouldn't be this close. So I regret not buying it at their auction. It just was bad timing for me. But luckily I know where it's at. Thanks, Corey, for letting me come over and see it. It's faded out. It wasn't always shedded. It's still a pretty straight tractor, and it runs awesome. So, I kind of wish I had it. I can remember when 18442s were big tires. Don didn't buy Magnum weights for it. He ended up putting his IH weights off his 986 on here. Original radio still works. Little stiff. Like I said, it's a 91 or 92, so it has 4 reverses. Still runs pretty good, I think. As far as I know, the engine's never really been touched on this. I don't know, maybe it had a water pump or something like that, but I think that's it. As a 16-year-old kid doing field work with this, I really thought that was about as good as it's ever going to get. And in some ways, it probably hasn't gotten a lot better since then. So, well, thank you for watching this. Thanks, Corey, for letting me see the Magnum. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this.